gospel, light of the temple. Sword swing, killer live from the ghetto. The hood messenger, let them know hell's close. Black burial, the devil in a black cloak.
Yo, what is up? Welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast. I'm your host, Dave One. And this is episode number... Yo, Cam, what episode is this?
Episode 88.
Episode 88. Man, it's good to have Cam still here again. You know what I mean? He's a busy guy. He's doing things. He's working full time. Got a girl. Got ministries. Doing all kinds of stuff, man. But he still makes it to the podcast, man. So he has to still show up because I need him, man. If we don't have Cam, I don't know where this podcast will be. But thank you guys for checking us out today. Definitely was a great podcast, episode 87. I had Melissa on, my wife. We talked about relationships and a whole bunch of stuff, man. Our love story, different things. So it was a great podcast. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. It's a great podcast. And as always, we need you to subscribe. So if you're watching us right now on YouTube, hit that subscribe button for us. Hit that like button for us. Hit that notification button for us. So whenever we put anything out, you'll get notified. We appreciate all our subscribers right now. Starting to creep up. So we want to really expand that. And then if you watch us on Spotify or Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, make sure that you subscribe to those two also. We appreciate that. But today we have a guest on the show, man, and we're excited because I think probably this guy came the farthest to the podcast. We've had people come to the podcast, and maybe they're from, across the United States. I think maybe we had Kelly. Kelly was from Kansas. We had people come from up north, come down and check us out. We have a couple of people scheduled from the upper West Coast, Northern West Coast. They want to come down and be on the podcast. But this guy, he comes halfway around the world, man. And so it was pretty dope to finally get him. He was in town. He said, basically, he was like, I'm going to be staying, like, basically everybody, a city over. You know what I mean? And I was like, you got to come on the podcast. We just can't let you pass by and not be on the podcast. So I want to welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast all the way from Switzerland. Man, I want you to give it up for Christian Nguyen.
Such an honor to be here.
Invaders. All the way.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming through, bro.
It's a blessing.
You know what I like? Okay, so we met face to face one time, right? And I don't even think you remembered, right? It was a Hurley show.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have to be honest, I don't remember.
Yeah, so this is how it happened. So we were talking about my buddy Tito, right? Tito introduced me to your artwork, right? And so I was like, Tito's like, yeah, man, this guy, he's dope, bro. He's my brother, And so Tito introduced me to your artwork, and I started following you. You would do little things, tag my brand, Savior brand at the time. You would tag the brand, and then we became friends through the brand. And I started following your artwork, and you started following Savior brand. And then there was that show. You came into the States, and you went to that show. And I remember, I think it was my friend Ralph. We were talking about Ralph Artcore, and I think Ralph was there. And Ralph goes, "Oh, that's Christian Invaders." And so I seen you, and I was like, "Hey, what's up, brother?" And I thought we took a picture. I'm gonna have to look back on some pictures. I thought we took a picture.
That would be interesting.
Me, you, and Tito. Yeah, it would be interesting. Now that I think about it, I know I took a picture with Tito. I might have been with Big Sleeps and Tito, but I remember seeing you, meeting you really quick, and then you left, and then we just kind of stood in contact, and then I think when I started doing the podcast, you were like a big fan of the podcast.
Yeah, but when we met the first time, it was such a different chapter of my life.
Was it?
Oh yeah, completely.
Wow.
For many reasons. First of all, I was so insecure back then. And I was really also arrogant. I was looking for my quest, my life, and I wanted to meet like the greatest tattooer, or when you're insecure and you want to, you need to prove things. And so you don't really pay attention of things you should pay attention. I was not interested in people. I was more interested in like who they were, or And
It's weird to me because like, I'll be honest with you, most artists are very eccentric, right? They have their own ways of doing things, their own time schedule.
yeah.
This is what I notice, right? I have a lot of artist friends, and then I'm not saying they have an ego, but there's a certain I wouldn't call it pride either.
Yeah.
But there's a certain what's the right word here that I'm looking for? There's a certain boldness. There's a certain makeup that they have. Like like they have like this sense of like I'm an artist and I'm good at something. So when you say you're insecure, what do you mean?
Okay, for many reasons. First, because I was empty. So when you're empty, you just try to copy people. You just try to act like. But it's a game. It's not the real you. So I guess especially growing up in Switzerland, it's hard to have dreams. Like at school, people tell you like if you are good, you will be banker or insurance.
Oh, okay.
Those kind of option.
Right.
And I wasn't good. And when you're not good, you're just a loser. It's hard to have a dream. And when I came to the US the first time, I remember like my first customer, he was like stuntman, musician. And I was like, wow, this country is different. Everybody have a quest, they have dreams. So you feel so little. Plus, I grew up, my dad, he was Vietnamese, so very Asian, like you don't really talk. So you just...
Nothing's personable.
No, and we had no conversation. So for me, it was really hard when I came here and people would talk to me. And my English was really bad, so I didn't know like how to act. But at the same time, I had this pride. I wanted to achieve something. So I was happy to meet people. But almost like when you have the photo, you want to leave because you feel really bad there.
Right.
Like you don't belong. So it was kind of hard. Really
Trying to find your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of mixed feeling.
Especially in this industry, right? In the tattoo art world, it's very hard to find where you fit in.
It's really hard,
right?
Really hard. Where back home it was more like a hobby, and here it was super professional.
Yeah,
like everybody had the best banner, the best portfolio, and I had nothing.
Wow,
nothing, and I felt ridiculous. But at the same time, my work was speaking for myself, which was a help for me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are trapped.
Right.
Because then you're like, oh, you're so good. And you cannot be like, oh, yeah, I'm so good. So you make, okay, what face should I make? Like
it's very hard to be humble and then people are telling you how great you are. And you're trying to find the right, who am I in the mix?
Yeah, exactly. And when you live in the world, like, you cannot show like, you have to be humble, but it's more like a reflection. Like you think about it. It's not like when you give your life to Christ, for example, you cannot boast about yourself. Right. Because it's not you anymore. Right. But in the world, that's what you do.
Yeah.
But so then it's this kind of acting like, oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm so good.
Yeah.
So that was really weird for me. And so a lot of people I met back then, almost like my brain wants to skip the thing.
And the artists are like, sometimes the artists are like bigger than life. You know what I mean? We talked about Norm and Big Sleeves and AB and all these guys. They're big personalities, right? Yeah. It's just like, I wouldn't call them characters, but they're
charismatic.
They're charismatic, right? They have this flow to them, and they're just bigger than life. Like when they walk in, you're like, who's that guy? Exactly. Even if you don't know them, right? And I think sometimes you think I have to be this charismatic guy. I have to be this. Who's Christian? Who's Invaders? I have to be somebody, or I create this identity so people will recognize.
But then it was a war in my head.
Yeah.
Because my friend back then, he knew all the best one. So he would bring me to all those shows, and I would see those guys, and my English was so bad. So it was hard. It was hard, but at the same time, that's where you learn. And I was not in my country, so I could recreate a new life almost, which was a good thing also.
Yeah.
But it's a process.
Yeah.
It's process. But I met a lot of good people.
Yeah, because that was at least, maybe 10 years ago at least?
More.
Probably more, huh?
15 or even more.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. But yeah, man, so you said you grew up in Switzerland?
Yeah, Geneva.
In Geneva.
Born and raised there.
Born and raised there.
And my father, he was from Vietnam. He left at the beginning of the war. And he came to Switzerland. He's the only one who took a plane, actually. The other one were boat people. And he met my mom there. But it was two different culture.
Yeah.
So
totally different.
Even when I grew up, they didn't go along really well. They never separate, but so it was like a shock. And she was Christian, but more religious, and he was Buddhist. So I even have a Vietnamese name.
Yeah.
And my mom was calling me with my French name. So it was weird to find your identity then.
Right. So not only you battling two cultures, two beliefs, right? Trying to figure out your way. I would imagine there's not too many people in Geneva that look like you.
No, back then, no.
Right?
I was like the Chinese of the school.
I mean, and so how did you navigate your way through that?
That was hard. And it's funny because on the way here, I was thinking about that. It's crazy. Every time I listen to your podcast, and there is some amazing testimonies. And what is hard here, we don't have the same heart. Like you don't see people shooting guns in Switzerland or this kind of thing. We have a different heart. Like you like I felt alone. Like you don't belong.
Yeah.
But there is no gang, no things like that. But still, you can be empty. You can be really sad. You can be suicidal. You can be all those things. But it's almost like you don't feel like you have the right to. You know, like when you're in the middle of the storm, you can't complain. My parents, they didn't divorce. I couldn't even complain about that. But they were still fighting, but in silence. So how do you complain about that?
Wow.
You understand? So
yeah.
It's this weird situation where...
No emotion.
No, not at all. Not at all.
That's a hard place to be. You know, we have a lot of different people on here. And the hardest thing is trying to find your identity. And many people find their identity in gangs or drugs or whatever, art. Yeah. You know, maybe it's jiu-jitsu, fighting, whatever it may be. Whoever we've had on here, it's always an identity. Where do I fit in? 100%. How can I fit in? Where do I go? But hearing how you grew up and the cultures and the religious beliefs and being an outsider, it's for us in America, it's hard to really understand that because now everybody's used to seeing all kinds of different cultures here. You know, there's many different cultures. I'm sure last night or when you're hanging out with people, you're like, I see all kinds of people that look like me or I can relate to, but living in a country where you can't really find anybody you can relate to or other people that look like you, it's hard.
And there was no internet.
Yeah.
No internet, which would make such a difference.
Right.
So honestly, until I was 12, life was boring. Like so boring, super boring. And I remember at 12, I went to a different school, and then I met one guy who was skateboarding, listened to like metal, hardcore, and then my life started. Then I was like, oh, okay.
That's what I like. That's my identity.
Yeah. And everybody hated these guys because he was different. And since I felt different, I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to be hated. or that would make sense.
Right. At least it gives you something to be hated for.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Not just for anything, but I can rebel. I can be part of this. And if they hate me for this, then okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
At least I have some
And he
identity.
was like my first friend.
Wow.
And
at 12, your first true friend.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
It is. But when you grow up, I guess you get so used to what is around you that it's normal. And when I met these guys, I'm like, okay, there is something different.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when I realized the music. I went to the first record store and the first cover. I'm like, amazing.
Start discovering yourself.
Yeah. And I started to try skateboarding, and I was so bad at that. Like, so bad. But the good thing, since I even was too shy to to go on a skate park or do something. So I would just watch the graphics.
Wow.
Which actually, now looking back, that's when I started drawing. And
when you picked up drawing, did it come easy?
I wouldn't say easy, but that was something I was feeling good.
Yeah.
Even alone,
Yeah.
I could do something.
Wow.
I could do something. Before it was super boring.
Yeah. It's good when you find something you love.
Yeah.
And then even if you're not particularly good at it right away, right?
Yeah.
But when you can do it alone and you don't need anybody else, like it's something great about that.
Exactly.
For me, it was like basketball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like every other sport, you need people to play with you.
Yeah.
Basketball, I felt like I just go out there,
I
shoot all day
Do
by
your
myself. I'm in my own world. I work on, my
Yeah.
game, and I can get away from everybody.
Exactly.
It's kind of like the same thing.
Yeah, and at the same time, so first of all, I could do something, so the day was different. And sometimes people would watch it and say, "Oh, that looks good." And for me, that was the first time I had compliments, because was something that really hit me back in the day. Like my parents never really compliment me. So like the first one who say, "Oh, this is good," it's like, wow, it feels so good.
Yeah.
It feels so good.
Yeah, I think the compliments, man, the encouragement, right? If nobody's encouraging, especially as a kid,
Yeah.
I mean, that could be devastating.
Yeah. One word can change a life. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Especially when you're a kid.
Even adult. I have so many customers, like when I say, "Hey, I'm proud of you," they're like almost shocked
Yeah.
because they never heard it.
It's for me, it's like it's hard to relate to that. And I had a father that was very encouraging.
Okay.
And would support me, everything. I wanted to be a rapper. He would go buy me music. Hey, here you go.
That's
And,
cool.
this and that. But when people say that, I reflect on that and I think like, man, like I was blessed, to have that, and to not have that. I don't know where I would be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when people say like, I didn't have anybody to encourage me, to help me, like I look at that and be like, yeah, that means a lot. Like,
Yeah.
and if you don't have that, it's tough.
Yeah. No, definitely. But it's crazy how, looking back, God can definitely use all those situations.
Yeah.
Like there was a reason. Even skateboarding, I love that, but like I probably tried 5 years and I was just like zero. Like no progression, no nothing. but he put me in these situations so I can learn how to draw.
Yeah.
Because then I could just watch the design and be bored at the skate park, so just draw.
Which was great because the
perfect.
graphics on the
Yeah.
skateboards were like
Yeah.
amazing, right?
And otherwise, I would be probably broken. Like, so looking back, that was actually a blessing. But at the same time, it was hard to realize what was happening. But then I started to build a name with my art, and almost the problem at sometimes was like I felt so empty and not worth it that people giving compliment was almost a problem. I created like a different personage,
Yeah.
and that was a problem at some point, where people they know your name, your art, but then you cannot even have a conversation because
It was only about the art, not about who you were.
yeah,
Oh, got it.
identity
Yeah. Yeah.
not easy.
I never really thought about that. You
Not
know what I
easy
mean?
at
I never really thought about that. Like, your identity is not Christian. Your identity becomes the artist.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah,
And for people to, now they recognize me
Yeah.
for just for my art, but they don't recognize me for who I am, or want to know beyond,
Exactly.
beyond like, hey, where I came from, what I'm Vietnamese and, Swiss,
Yeah.
this is who I am, but no, you're just the artist. I never really thought about it that way.
and the more you grow as an artist, the more people expect you to match this,
Yeah.
So which really became a problem for me.
Wow.
And
Were they had expectations
yeah,
of you being,
like imagine meeting your favorite rapper,
yes.
and like he's amazing, and you meet him and he's like super shy and doesn't even talk
Yeah,
to you,
right.
cannot even look you in the eyes.
Right.
For me, that was something hard. Look at someone in the eyes. In my head, I was like, he know I'm nobody. Like he probably can see that, so I should better go.
Wow.
That was hard.
Where did that insecurity come from, you think? Because here you are talented. I'm sure people recognize that, but you're still insecure in who you are.
Yeah, probably from the childhood, because at home we never had conversation, no encouragement. All my dad's family were in Canada or Vietnam, so never
No family,
met them.
nothing.
So I had no conversation. So you're just alone. So it's hard to, and there was no internet. I was not really reading. So you're just rebel. And then when I discover like all those music, punk, hardcore, then I just jump into that. And I thought that was freedom. Like saying, like the world,
Yeah.
this is
You have
not for me.
an outlet.
Yeah. And then I thought I was free. Like those weird situations, like people taking drugs and they think they're free.
Right.
Where actually you're a slave of that. And for me, I jumped into a lot of things and I thought I was free. I had red hair. I'm like, yeah, I'm free. I never did interview for a job. Never.
Wow.
Never had a boss. So in my mind, I was free. Where actually I was just lost.
Wow.
And that was a little crazy. So, and since my dad wasn't really there, you don't have like an example.
Yeah.
So you just look at some people. Okay, this guy. Okay, I'm gonna be a little bit like him for a while, and then you look at another one, and it's like okay, and depends who they are. It's not a good thing.
What is your family when you start going through these changes? Are they saying anything to you? Are they starting to like say, "Hey, where are you going with this?"
We were fighting. But at this point, I didn't want to listen to them. And only when I was like, I got tattooed when I was 15, and I hid it for 3 years.
What'd you get?
Like a small dragon.
Hey.
Horrible. But he was the only guys in town who didn't really ask my age because he knew.
Yeah.
But he was okay. I knew he was not the best one, but it was okay.
Yeah.
And so I really hid that. And then I knew I wanted to do that. And I guess my mom was really against that. And it's funny, we still talk about that today. now we are really close. And at this point, my father, he probably realized that was a thing. So he offered to buy me equipment.
Okay.
Which I didn't accept. I just borrowed the money. I was too proud. but then that was the start. He kind of knew. So even the first tattoo I did were at my parents' apartment.
Wow.
Yeah, now looking back, I'm like, wow, how did they let that happen? so that was cool. That was cool.
So a little bit of support in the form of, okay, he's not gonna be the banker,
Yeah.
or be a lawyer, but maybe
Yeah.
we can encourage him to do this art.
Yeah, it was a support but in a very Asian way. No conversation, but like, there's the money.
Yeah.
He was special, and
Yeah.
like even when I started, I told my dad like I want to give you a tattoo. I want to tattoo you, and he's like, yeah, when you do an interview. So I had one magazine, too small. The second magazine, too small, and the last one was probably 20 pages, and he's like, too small. And right before he passed away, I'm like, so I told him like it was almost a lie, and he's like, no, you could. I knew you have more potential. That was his way of encouraging. But I was like, okay,
Kind of old school.
very old school.
Old school.
Very old school. Yeah.
Is that the way the Asian culture kind of is? I know the Hispanic culture there is there's kind of a form of that sometimes where you're it can be harsh at time, or it can be a little brutal, but it's inside. The dad just doesn't know how to express it.
Exactly.
So he's just like, I'm just gonna be hard because I want to see him succeed, but
Yeah.
it's not in a loving way, maybe, but it's
Exactly. But at least we could have those conversations, and that was fine. But yeah, it was not easy.
Yeah.
But when it's not easy, you have no option than to grow and to learn. So in a way, it was something good.
Right.
I'm grateful for that now.
Yeah.
Now.
I think when we become men, sometimes those harsh things that our fathers did for us, maybe we can see them now as we're older. Like,
Exactly.
okay, that was kind of good.
Yeah.
You know, I there's a lot of things I remember with my dad that were good, but then there was some things I was at that time, being young, I was like, man, that was rough. But then I look back, maybe that's why he did it, you know, or maybe that was good for me. You know what I mean? Maybe at the time I looked at it as being a young guy and it was kind of mean or you know, and now I look back and say, well, I'm kind of glad that he did that because it made me who I am today.
Exactly. No, honestly, now looking back, I'm grateful for that. I'm really grateful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you started tattooing, and what was your first tattoo that you did?
It was on me. It was on me. Because back in the day, I remember like you couldn't find equipment, and I met someone who was going to New York, and she bought me some equipment there, and so when she came back, she gave me all the equipment, and even the color, it was like powder.
Oh wow!
You needed to mix everything yourself, like the needles. You needed to make the needles. So
wow!
It was a trip. It was hard, but at the same time, when you make your own needles and you don't have the right tools and the needles are really not that good, you need to learn how to use it.
Right.
And again, something really bad at first can turn into something really good.
Yeah.
Because then I was like, okay, it's not round, but okay, if you do those lines like this, it's fine line, and then it's bold line. So you can really play with that.
Wow.
But at first, I'm like, no.
Yeah, there's something to be said about when things don't come easy.
Yeah.
And you have to figure it out.
Exactly.
And make it work.
Yeah.
And obviously, I would assume that in Switzerland or Geneva, it's not a big tattoo community, right?
It was nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Only one biker guy who was there, and it was hard. It was hard. And I was supposed to do an apprenticeship, and I remember, that was a weird story. So there were 3 guys tattooing back then, and only one was good. So when I was 15, I went to the bad one because the good one, he didn't want to tattoo me. I was too young. But as soon as I got one, he was okay.
Okay.
So at 16, I went back to these guys, and he gave me this appointment on Christmas Eve. So I go to the shop, and he gave me a beer. And I'm like, okay. So we drink one, another one. Then I'm like, okay, you don't want a tattoo, then that's fine. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, let's do it. All drunk, and he started tattooing me, and he knew I wanted to tattoo. And then he's like, oh, I can teach you. And I'm like, okay. So maybe that's the only interview I had, actually, now looking back.
Over beers.
Yeah. So, yeah, I woke up in the living room of my parents. I was supposed to go to party. I don't remember. It was weird. But the guys told me, like, he could take me. And the weekend before I was supposed to start, he got shot. I went to a party, and my friend is like, oh, too bad for you. And I'm like, what do you mean? He died. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was weird. That was real. And so I had the equipment, and then I left my parents' place, and I went to live in a squat. And that's where I opened my first shop.
So you went from just teaching yourself, no apprenticeship.
No.
And then just practicing on whoever and anybody.
Yeah. But the good thing, living in a squad, there were only punks. And
are you practicing on all of them?
Yeah. But I still have the first one I did on myself. And actually now I'm like, well, actually it wasn't too bad.
Oh, wow.
So those customers were the best, honestly. Because I could just draw on them. They already had a lot of work. And so I could really practice.
And how old are you at this time?
18.
18, so super young.
Yeah,
for
that's
a tattoo
the
guy,
first
right?
and only job I ever did.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember when I opened my shop in the squat, one of the first customer. So I'm 18, and there was one guy in the neighborhood. He was really well known for being a tough guy. Like everybody called him Patch Eyes because he was blind from one eye, and he came to the shop. He just put some money on the table. He's like, do whatever you want here. If I like it, this is yours. And if I don't like it, like I punch you. And I'm like, wow. And he was one of the first customer. So now looking back, it's a funny story.
What'd you do?
Like a Japanese mask.
And what did he say?
I didn't get punched.
Are you worried?
Oh, so much. And again, that's the thing. Like when you're shaking, when you're like feel so bad,
right?
You cannot show your customer. So I really learned how to make the face, but deep inside it was a mess.
Oh.
And the problem is the more you learn that, the more you use that. And it's a trap. It's a trap. By the time you want to be free, it's like, wow, you built such a big thing that you know you're going to have to destroy everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy that you say that you battled that so much, you know? And I would think that you would just be like,
no,
like, man, this is who I am, and I'm doing it now, and that's it. And
not at all.
I'm a young guy. I'm ahead of the game, but there's nobody else giving me competition here. I'm doing my thing.
Not at all,
man.
Not at all. And for years, it really lasted a long time. Long time.
So you start tattooing. You open up your shop. You get things going.
Yeah.
Are you successful right away? Or is it a grind?
It was both. It was both. I had customer, but it was a grind, like even to get equipment. To everything was a grind. There was no tattoo convention, or it was like if you didn't know these guys, you couldn't enter this circle. It was really small back then. Like the first convention, there was only one convention in Europe where you could get equipment, and you had to prove you had a shop. Everything was hard.
And the internet comes around
way later.
Yeah,
way later.
That helps spread your brand a little bit, right?
I didn't realize, like my Instagram, one of my customer did it for me. She's like, "Oh, you need to be on Instagram," and I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And she did it for me. Same for Facebook, all those things. So I never realized the impact of that. My world was like this little bubble. If you were there, you were not in my bubble.
Right.
So I would just like skip it. Because that's the only part where I felt good when I was tattooing. And even if the customer was looking at what I was doing, I would struggle. I would really struggle. I had to find a lot of tricks to escape all the thing. I just lay my customer down so his face is there. He cannot see what I'm doing, and then I know what I'm doing, and I know I can do something really good. And as soon as they started watching, I would be like, oh, he probably see I'm not this guy,
Oh man,
yeah, that was weird.
Man, that's tough, man, to have that insecurity for so long.
It really was. But again, at the same time, for me now, like when my life changed, then you can really realize everything changed.
Yeah.
Where my brother, when I escaped in all like alcohol, drug, things like that, he escaped into religion. And then he found faith. But nowadays, it's still hard to separate what is religion, what is faith, because it kind of looked like the same.
Right.
When you do drugs and then you find like something real, you know the difference. It's really like the opposite.
Right.
So,
how did you find Christ?
I guess back in the day, my mom tried, but since we were fighting, she was a packaging. Religion one in this packaging, so I went the other way. But like a lot of people and almost everybody, we know there is something, but sometimes just to know there is something is enough, or you think it's enough. And I wanted to do my thing as well. I wanted to do things I shouldn't be doing. So even if I knew there was something, I would hide, just so I could like do more of those things. And so that was going on for years. And then I really, one day, I don't know how, but I got this book from Brian Welsh from Korn.
Yeah.
And just the title, Save Me From Myself. I I could relate to that because I hated myself. And I remember reading this book, and this book really hit me. Like, it really hit me. Like, I remember buying copies, and I would give copies to my customer. And what happened next? I was on tour. I was really lucky. All during my career, I met a lot of amazing people and musicians. And one day I was on tour with Limp Bizkit, and they had a date with Korn, and Brian was in the backstage.
Oh, wow.
So, and I went to him, and I'm like, hey, I read your book, and he was super nice, like really nice, like paying attention to me, and I was like, wow, he's different. He's really like in a book. So this book really changed my life. And from that, I knew I had to change something. But sometimes but you're not ready. And you go, oh, let me do another, a last round, Yeah. And probably I did a lot of those last
But God
rounds.
began working on you.
Yeah.
During that time.
Deep inside I knew. And at some point, I was dating this woman back then, and we stayed like for 15 years, but we were not in love. It was like this weird. Sometimes you put yourself in a situation where you think it's comfortable, but actually it's a trap. But you think it's okay, like, oh, I'm there, I'm not moving, and so I thought it was okay, but then I still feel empty. Like you can go to a party. You are laughing all night long. You talk to everybody, and you go home, and you have those 2 minutes where you're drunk and you feel alone, and you look at your phone, and you shouldn't have texted this person, or and those 2 minutes, and and that was the point where I kind of knew things needed to change. And I remember we were supposed to go on a holiday, and we had a fight right before that, and she texted me. She's like, "Oh, I left with the kids," and I just left with the kids. And I had an American friend working in my shop at the time, and I'm like, "Oh, what should I do?" And it's like, "Oh, let's go party." So we just party all night. I wake up hangover, and I'm like, "Oh, what do I do?" And because we were supposed to go to Greece, we booked this beautiful resort, just the two of us, no kids, and I'm hangover, and I'm like, "Okay, I'll go there." So I grabbed my swimsuit, a few T-shirts, and a book that my brother gave me back in the day that I never read because he was my brother. So I take the plane, I land, and I end up in this beautiful resort, like beautiful, but all alone. And then I had a lot of anxiety back then. So I'm there, and I'm just tripping. And I'm stuck for a week. And I remember the Wi-Fi wasn't working, and I'm just with this book, and I remember just opening the book random in the middle, and the first sentence was like, "One day I'll put you aside so you come back to me." And as soon as I read that, I have peace, and I fall asleep. And I wake up next day, like really early in the morning, no breakfast, no bar, no nothing. So I go swim for an hour, anxiety, I come back to the room, and I grab the book again, and I read like random, and it speaks to me, and I have peace. And actually, that was a book about the Psalm. And then I felt so alone, and I emailed my brother. And for me to do an email, there is something. And to my brother. And I'm like, okay, that's the situation in my life. And he's like, okay, just pray about that. And at the same time, from Brian Welch's book, I discovered the Whosoever, like this movement, and the podcast, Ryan Reed's Live. And I click on one episode, and he talk about punk rock Jesus. And at the end, he says something so simple. I remember, like, if Jesus is real, he should be able to prove it to you. And if you have problem, he should be able to help you. And then I was like, okay, that means just one question. And if you have no answer, it doesn't exist.
Right.
And if you do have an answer, things change. So I remember that was the only day where actually I was like, okay, if you're real, just help me and prove it. And he did right away. Like right away. And that was weird because I remember I was like on a long chair. I was praying, and I had my phone on my stomach, and I had some question in my head. And the first question was like, do I have to move from this situation, like even the apartment? And when I'm praying, my phone is like vibrating, and when I'm done praying, I just open the thing, and there was a message from someone like I had a beef, like I had a little affair with, but ended up really bad. And she texted me, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know why I sent you this message, but my parents are renting this place, and the data are like perfect." So I keep praying, more question, and boom, 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 so many answers. And like for 1 week,
Wow.
one after another. So by the end of the week, I knew things had to change, and that was the beginning of the process.
Wow. Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Elevate Ministries. Elevate Ministries is an authentic, passionate, and innovative church in the heart of Orange County, California. They strive to make their services welcoming and encouraging by intentionally engaging you in all senses to stimulate a spiritual hunger. If you're looking for a great church that's on a mission to change the world one person at a time, I encourage you to check them out at www.elevateministries.com and on Instagram at Elevate Ministries.
Yeah, that was weird. So I knew I had to stop drinking, for example, which I did, and then I lost all my friends, kind of. And
How was that?
Hard, really hard. But at the same time, at that moment, he already showed me enough so I could make a decision. You know?
Yeah. Were you now feeling secure? All those years you felt insecure, but to lose a lot of friends, you would think that you would feel that anxiety, that insecurity again. Like, what did I just do?
I felt loved for the first time. Like I had this emptiness for years, and as soon as I was on this new way, I felt love and not alone. Even alone, but not alone.
Right.
You know? So it was really hard to lose all my circle and everything. I lost pretty much everything. But at the same time, the main thing was there.
The thing that you've been missing forever now was filled.
And it was not equal. Like this thing here was way better. Way, way better. But it was not easy at all. But I remember at that moment, he was really helping me one day at a time. But really one day at a time.
Wow.
Like he would send me one person. Boom. But honest, and I thought I was going crazy because it was almost too much. Like, because I remember at that time I used to work for like a luxury watch company, and they sent me to Malaysia for an event. And then I went to the airport, and I'm like, oh, it's the first time I don't have a drink before flying. You know, even those little things. And I only knew one Christian guy who was actually one of my brother's friend. And I'm at the airport, and I just post something on Facebook, and the first guy who liked the post is this guy. And I'm like, oh, strange, you know? So I go to my terminal, and who's there? This guy.
No way.
Like crazy. And he's with his boss, so he's like, I cannot talk right now. So I jump in a plane, I fall asleep, the plane is full, one seat is empty next to me, and I open my eyes, and he's come to me, sit next to me. He's like, hey, what's happening? So I tell him the whole story. And God really used these guys to guide me.
Wow.
But only one guy. And I remember, and he's like, call me when you come back. So I came back, and he, I don't know how it was, but he's like, oh, come to my church tonight. It's like a men's group. And in my head, I was like, a men's group? And I felt so bad about that, like so bad. And
what type of men's group?
Yeah, exactly. For me, it was like, whoa. And but then I was so alone. So I'm like, okay, I'm coming. And I went there, and and my biggest fear was that if I would give my life to Christ, he would tell me like no more tattoos. Mm-hmm. That was my biggest fear.
Sure.
And I remember going to this church, and I see there were like 5 people. This guy, Mirawi, and 4 old people. Like for me, like old people. So we go there. These guys give his testimony. I'm not really paying attention, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna pray for you," and I felt so bad. I'm like, oh. So he prayed for one guy, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna pray for you." So I just closed my eyes. I didn't know how to do or what it was, and he started praying, and then he opened. He just stopped. So I opened my eyes, and he looked at me. He's like, "Okay, you keep doing what you do, but for different reason." And I was like,
Whoa.
Okay, and I just left. And that was that. And I knew I would still tattoo, but not for the same reason no more.
Amazing.
Yeah. Because back in the day, I think I was really trying hard, but to prove things. Like I'm better than this guy. You can do something beautiful, who looks beautiful, by hate, by anger.
Yeah.
And at this moment, I knew I had to switch and do from different angle.
What was the new reason that you felt to continue to tattoo? And what was the change there?
I mean, if you give your life, it's not yours, so you do it for him. And he knows if you do, if you give 100%. You know, if you do just to prove something, he know everything. And at that point, I knew I didn't want it to hide anything. I wanted to be free.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, that was wild. That was really wild.
You know what? I love the stories of a process.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's some people that instantly, boom,
Yeah.
God touches them, right? And just and there's some people that God just works on them little by little and sends them people or sends a circumstance or sends, whatever, a message, and how all these little seeds get planted,
Absolutely.
Our seed gets planted, somebody waters it, and then another person, helps fertilize it or whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden this thing grows, and it's just like God's great when He works like that, because I think sometimes when it's a process for some people, it's even more real, like because it was like I had this prayer answered, and then this guy got sent to me, and then I had this book, and then I met. I read Brian Welch's book, and then I meet him, and then he's talking to me, and it's just like all these things, and it's like God proving, like, to you, like, in all these different steps and levels, and then finally you come to know him.
Yeah, 100%. But for some stuff, he like from one day to another, things would change.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like no more porn, no more, like those things were like these easy.
Wow.
And for some other, I really struggled, and it was a process. And but yeah, and then I remember because even in Geneva, I knew nothing about church, about those, and I was watching Ryan Rees, and I could see all his guests, and they were like my crowd, like tattooed people, but in Geneva, nothing like that. And I remember, so I started checking online, and I saw one church. I'm like, okay, I need to see that. So, and back then I had an old American car in Switzerland, I was so proud about that. So I take this car, and I'm a little late, so I drive really fast. I park in front of the church. As I'm parking, I see these little blonde girls parking, and I'm like, no, I don't want to watch. Like you have this war going on. And I go upstairs, and people are playing music, and I love music, and they are really bad, like horrible. And I remember there was one guy in front of me, like only a few hair, like horrible clothes, and he was dancing really weird and singing like horrible. And honestly, God showed me, like, these guys, he's free, you're not. And I was like, wow. And I thought I was free because I never had a boss, I never, but these guys, he was. When you can sing like that and be okay, even today, I'm far from these guys.
Wow.
And I remember I left the church, and I had a paddleboard in my trunk, and I went to the lake. It was a storm. I just went a little bit, and I look at the sky. Half of the sky was like dark, other blue sky. And he's like, okay, now choose. Now you choose. You saw that. Now you you need to make the decision. And then I went back and I called my brother. I'm like, okay, baptize me today, please.
Wow.
Right now. And yeah, that was crazy.
How long ago was that?
8 years ago.
8 years ago.
8 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we met, you were a different person.
Different life.
Wow.
Different life. Yeah.
So but the crazy thing too is your name's Christian.
And back in the day when I was coming here, I remember everybody asking me for a cross and praying hands, and I was like, why? And I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all.
I mean, those are go-to tattoos, right?
Yeah.
Cross, praying hands,
Yeah.
you know, and you're just like,
When I was into Japanese and like,
wild, man. And what's life been like since, bro?
amazing in a lot of ways. I mean, so even my customers, they could definitely see the difference. Even I remember one of my customers, like biker guys, really tough guys. And at that time I was playing like worship in my shop. And back in the day it was more metal. And he's like, you changed, John. And he's like, back in the day I would come here and I knew I would have nice tattoos, but you didn't care about anything else. And I was okay with that. But now you talk. So I could definitely see a lot of changes. I could see that he would send me customer for a reason. And I remember one day I'm like, oh, maybe I should pray for this person. And I felt so bad, so awkward, you know, when you pray for someone the first time. And
Yeah.
but then it was so good. And everything changed. Honestly, everything changed. Even this trip here, coming back here, I can definitely see that he changed me, but he changed also the people I meet. He changed
Right.
the reason, the purpose. Everything is different.
Yeah.
And especially when you go back to a place you already been, but you're different, you can really see that
Yeah.
he changed you.
Your eyes see things differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They
Big
may
time.
remain the same in the fleshly realm, but in the spiritual realm, you see things different.
Yeah.
You see a lot of some good. You see some changes. You see some bad. You know that you didn't see before, that you didn't recognize before.
Yeah.
But it's good to have those spiritual
Yeah.
eyes to really take a look at things and see things like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, I think you learn to appreciate things more.
And for me now, it's like when you drive with a GPS, you feel way better because you know the destination. So you can enjoy the view, you can have your coffee. It's different. And that's really how I feel now walking with him. Because I know the destination. So even if there is road work or a lot of things on the road, you know where you go. So you have this peace.
Mm.
It really doesn't mean there won't be storm. I have more storm than ever. Like really than ever. But when he gives you peace in the middle of that, where you used to have anxiety when everything was fine, you know things are different.
True, man. I mean, he says it in his word, right?
Yeah.
John 16:33. In this world you will have trouble.
Oh,
but
yeah.
take heart, I have overcome the world.
Yeah.
And it always gives me peace, that scripture, because you know we're not alone anymore.
No, we're not. No, we're not. But I had situation even last year where honestly, and I remember, I don't know where I heard that, but this pastor, he was like, if you knew that everything would end tonight, 8 o'clock, 8, everything ends, would you be happy or sad? You know, and it's a real question as a believer. Like, if you know, like 2 days, the last day,
Right.
do you jump like, yeah? Or it's like, no, I want more, you know? And last year I remember sometime where I was like, please, yeah, today would be a good day. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that sometimes he give you like those struggle, like to stay close to him and to get ready.
Right.
Where otherwise you want to jump back into the world and have pleasure or, you know.
Yeah, it's very easy to get into a struggle or a battle, you know, or an issue, and very easy to say like, why is this happening to me, God?
Yeah.
In that sense. But it's something to say, okay, God, what are you trying to show me
Exactly.
through this?
Yeah.
What are you trying to teach me?
Yeah.
You know, we can look at difficulties and trials and say, hey, Lord, you know, like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah.
Like, why am I going through this? Or we can say, what is the purpose of this? You know, it's two different things, two different ways to look at it, man. Yeah. And sometimes we got to recalibrate ourselves and really understand, like, hey, you know, like, this is either I'm falling away a little bit, or I'm not as sharp as I was at one time, or maybe I'm deviating from his plan and I need to get back on track. So he's kind of showing me, hey, get back on track here.
Absolutely. And but now he's giving me like new dreams. He's opening new doors that I never expected, especially because like I didn't like to talk to people back in the day, and now like my next project is about talking to people.
Wow.
And
what is that project?
I want to do a documentary. I actually when I stopped drinking, when my life changed, like the T-shirt I have, this destroy what destroys you. That was like for me a daily reminder, like be careful about that. And which now for me stand for like kill the flesh, like daily.
Yeah,
you have to, otherwise. So my project is to make a documentary, to have different people giving their testimonies about like what is success. Because nowadays it's really confusing. For a lot of people, success is like having followers, having money, having tons of friends, you name it. Where actually, if it's empty there, it's not a success. Success is having peace, feeling loved. So the idea of the documentary is really to have like musician, athlete who went all the way to the top, but they were empty. Like Brian's Welsh book. When I read that, I was like, okay. Dude,
like yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I mean, those guys are like different level.
But when I met in the world of tattooing, like you're known. You would be considered somebody that made it.
Yeah.
To other tattoo artists, they look up to you and say, hey, this guy's great. I want to be like him. He owns his own shop. He tattoos everybody. He knows, you know, Jeremy from Sullen. He knows all these guys. He has all these connections. And so for you, I think that's amazing, because even when I met you, you know, you said you weren't a believer yet. You had all these things going on. At that time, I'm thinking, oh, this guy's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But inside,
yeah, exactly.
You were somebody different.
Yeah. So that's the idea of the documentary. And again, now I can definitely see that's God's project. That's his project. Because I know nothing about that. I have no founding for that. But it's opening doors.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, one guy's like, "Oh, I can film. I can shoot for you for free." And I'm like, "Okay." And even on this trip, crazy story. So Latisha, who came to this podcast, so we were talking already, but I just met in person finally, and we went for dinner, and she introduced me to some of her friends, amazing people, and that was like that was amazing, really amazing evening. And one of those guys is a really famous musician, and I told him about the project, and he was super nice. Like, he welcomed us like friends, and I was tripping about that. Like, in my old life, I would be bragging about that like crazy. But when you live for Christ, it's different. So we were like brother, and he's like, I want to do that. I want to do this documentary. And in my head, I'm like, okay, God, this is you. So it's really opening new doors. So I really want to do like a trailer now with those guys, and to find some funding to do that. So that's now what I have in my heart.
That'd be awesome, bro.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome. And there's a lot of people in the tattoo world that their lives over the years have changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think about Letitia Wood, you know, she came here and Big Sleeps.
Yeah,
and,
I told him about that yesterday.
And you know, even Franco. You know, Franco too, you know, I've been trying to get him on here too, but just seeing the transformation over the years in the lives of these people, you know, and how God has revealed himself to them. It's amazing. It's crazy. 'Cause like you say, you know, even when I had AB here, you know, we've had a lot of discussions about God and things like that. But I always laugh 'cause I'm like the tattoo world, you know, they're constantly tattooing Jesus or a cross or, you know, praying hands. You know, it's very religious, but it's like it's right there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's right there, but sometimes it's so far away, but they're actually tattooing a picture, you know, of Jesus, you
Exactly.
know, and it's so I think there's a movement within the tattoo world of people like coming to know Christ, you know,
Yeah.
and really understanding who he is, and at least interested in who he is.
Yeah, it's opening a lot of conversation. But and for me, I feel really blessed because especially coming from Switzerland, like here you have a scene like believer, like
Right.
but like in Switzerland, really hard. Like if you're tattooed like this, you don't belong there. So for me to have people here that are willing to do this documentary and that I can bring back that to show there,
Yeah,
it means so much.
it's bigger.
Like so much.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea. And where God is really amazing. Like I love music. My dream as a teenager was to be a rock star. For the wrong reason, but that was my dream. And I love music. And now I can, with this documentary, I can record music, and I want to meet musicians who want to share the same message to do songs together. I don't want to tour or have a band, but I want to do music with a purpose. Like I told you when you had this amazing guest, I forgot her name, super
Yaija.
talented. Yeah, super. And in my head, I was like, wow,
She's blowing up right now.
I would love to have people like her,
Yeah.
like who really believe and who could sing on those songs.
Right.
Like
Should be great. Should be great.
Remember back in the day, this soundtrack, all those metal band with hip hop artists, a Judgment Night.
Judgment Night. Yeah.
Still my favorite.
Right. It's still great.
Yeah,
I love that.
And in my mind, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like for the soundtrack of the documentary,
It'd be sick.
that would be amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
I love this project now.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Judgment Night. That soundtrack was like, that was the beginning of like that rap core.
Yeah,
you know what I
that
mean?
was crazy.
Yeah, I love that soundtrack.
And now still looking back, like God gave me the opportunity to tattoo the like House of Pain.
It's crazy.
And for me as a Swiss guy, that was a dream. So now I look back and I'm like, wow, he knew
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And even then he gave me those opportunity. Even I was feeling so bad and I was like shaking and dying there. But still I'm now looking back, I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that was cool.
And there's something about being in the tattoo chair for hours, right?
Yeah.
And you have conversations, and sometimes they're deep conversations.
All the
I would
time.
only say like close to that would be like your barber, but even then,
Less hours.
yeah, it's 30.
Wow.
30
Yeah.
My barber only cuts my hair. It takes 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
But for a tattoo, you're in there for 4, 5, 6, 8 hours sometimes, and you're getting to know this person, and the opportunity you have to share your story. Or
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. It's a unique situation.
And I was reading something one day, and there is blood involved. You blood coming out, and you put something. It's really deep.
Yeah.
It's really deep. Honestly,
it is.
And even now when I get tattooed, I need to know the person. It's deep. It's
Right.
deep. It's not just something you do like that.
Yeah.
It's way more.
That's what I trip out on them, because I'm like, man, there's something that's there that you don't really understand until you get a few tattoos, and then especially if you get a few tattoos with the same person. You know, like you build this bond or this relationship. You get to know the person, they get to know you. And there's a respect, and then there's an openness to be able to share Christ or be able to share your story.
Yeah.
So I think there's a great connection right there. I think a lot of people don't understand that.
The last 8 years, and I remember I started counting people I was praying for, and then after 200, I was like, wow, that was crazy.
Yeah.
And all of them, like something happened, and even in a way, I really enjoy praying for people who don't believe, because they see the difference.
Yeah.
Somehow, I don't know. It's beyond something I could explain, but
Yeah.
it's amazing for sure.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing to be able to get to know somebody, and like, you know, I've sat down with Sleeps, and even one time Sleeps was tattooing me, and Norm was there, you know, and just talking to him, and I had the brand, you know,
Yeah.
we started talking about Savior, and I'm like, the Savior, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not just a name, but this is who we're talking about, and he's like recognizing it, and there's a lot of opportunities there, and I love that whether it's a talent of tattooing or the podcast, whatever, how God uses the talent. I think everybody out there should recognize, like, you have something. Like, everybody is not going to be a pastor or a preacher or be on stage.
Exactly.
But God's giving you something. It could be skating. It could be music. It could be video.
Anything.
It could be the podcast. But God can use that. In that one-on-one relationship, those 200 people you prayed for, like, that connection is greater than preaching an hour, on a Sunday. It's a tighter connection there.
Especially in this world, like when you really pay attention at your customer, they're not used to that, which shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But that's a fact. Like when you're really there, it's different.
Yeah.
They know it's different.
Right.
And and everybody want to be free. Everybody want to have this quest to be loved.
Yeah.
Everybody. 100%.
100%. There's no, whether they deny it or not, it's true.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's true. Let me ask you this, bro. So your tattooing style. You tattoo a lot of skulls.
I do.
I'm not afraid of skulls as a believer.
Yeah.
But there's probably some believers out there that go, what's the deal with all the skulls?
I had some conversation.
Right?
And it's funny.
I know where you're going with it. But explain it.
So for when I started, definitely some artists that really had an impact on me were like Pochette, Robert Williams, all those guys. So skull was everywhere. So I started drawing skull, and I still love to draw skull. I'm really attracted to that. But the one I draw, they're not dark. Like we do have a skull, all of us. It's there.
Yeah.
We have one. And for me now, it's really like a reminder that time is really short. And don't waste your time.
Right.
There is a deadline. Very soon. There is a deadline. So for me, it's really a reminder. It's not something like dark.
Yeah.
God created that. And it's funny, I used to work for a clothing company down in San Diego, and he told me, like, oh, all of your skull are smiling. Like, and I'm like, yeah. They're not dark.
Yeah.
Not dark at all.
I think it goes along with your theme.
Yeah.
Destroy what destroys you.
Exactly.
The old person.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You're putting to rest. You're putting to death the old person who I was. That's the old me.
Exactly. So it's not a negative thing for me.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Because people get confused with tattoos, right? They get a little wigged out. Even with my Jesus, right? I think, and I'm like, I get, well, he didn't look like that, or and I'm like, I'm okay with that. Well, whatever way he looked, but it's a representation of him, and it's a reminder for me of what he's done in my life.
Yeah,
right.
And it opened conversation.
Yeah,
it opened conversation. But I remember at some point once everything was new for me, I would just go in a church with like short sleeve and a hat just to see how they look at me. If they would judge me, I would just go in a different one. And if they welcome me, I'm like, okay, this is real.
Yeah.
It was almost like a test thing.
Right.
And it's funny because I remember when I tried few church at one, I remember entering and this old lady is like, oh, this is really not good. Like really judging. And years later, last summer, the pastor, he called me. He's like, oh, can you come to the church and talk about tattoos? And I'm like, all right. That was crazy. That was really interesting. So I just went and it's funny because this day there was only old people. And I was like, wow, why did I say yes? But actually it turned out to be an amazing day.
I think people, once they talk to you, realize your heart, realize where you're coming from. Yeah. I think it's a little bit more accepted now than it's ever been.
Still Switzerland, we are way
You're still back. You're still back.
Yeah. But talking about style, like Japanese always been my favorite. I think it's super solid. But since I was coming here, like all the black and gray, I love that. But I really think you can almost do every style and have a deep meaning.
Right.
And I'd really love to do something that really lasts and that have meaning. I don't mind doing like even a small tribal. That's also the thing. Like back in the day when it's for you, there is stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
right.
I'm better. and now if you work for the customer and you just want to do whatever he wants and give the best version.
Right.
You work for the person.
Right. Yeah. I love tattoos. I mean, it's great. I mean, I think it means a lot.
It
Identifies who you are, the type of tattoo, right? The
Yeah.
things you get, you know what I mean?
But it's funny because the first time I came to San Diego like 20 years ago, I remember I was looking at all those guys with like 619 SD, and I had like color sleeve, and people would look at me like, where is he from? Like, what kind of neighborhood is that?
Yeah.
And for me, then I was like, oh, okay, that's different,
Right.
And Switzerland, since we don't have this culture, people just like do a copy. You know,
Yeah.
It's almost like hip hop back in the day. Like there was a message from like this area because of the situation,
Right.
And when you're a rapper in Switzerland, you should talk about the bank, about cleaning the money, or you know,
Right.
there is different things.
Where you're from. You should talk about where you're from.
Exactly.
Right? You should talk about things in your neighborhood.
Yeah, but if you try to copy the other culture, then
You're not authentic.
exactly.
Right.
But authentic, that's a word that need to be told again.
I know, right? I had a guy tell me, you know, he's we grew up in the same neighborhood. My family was from the same gang as his gang, and so he always tells me, you know, as a put down, well, you're not from the hood, you know,
Yeah.
you're not from the gang. And I'm like, no, you're right. I'm not from the gang.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not my life, and I'm
Exactly.
fine with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we need to be okay with who we are. Be authentic. Like, this is who I am. Yeah, this is who I am. I don't
Yeah.
live that life. Yeah, I went to church my whole life. Yeah, I lived a clean life. I'm not ashamed to say who I am. And I think if everybody would just be who they are, it'd be a better place for everybody.
Yeah, but honestly, without Christ, it's impossible because you just create your own with all the wounds, all you know. So it's always
Right.
broken, always. When actually when you live for, I remember one guy he said something amazing. He's like, for me, faith is like less of me, more of him. That means less of you. And I was like, wow, that means people's opinion not gonna hurt you no more. This is amazing.
Right.
I think everybody want that, especially social media. Like to be able to post something, have 0 like, and you're fine.
Yeah,
You did it for him. He knows that's fine. 1 like is
Right.
enough, and he doesn't have to press it.
Right.
Which is perfect.
or never post it. Right, just do something good. You know,
Yeah.
we live in a culture where let me post what I'm doing.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean, to show everybody.
Yeah.
You know, hey, how about not showing anybody and just doing it for yourself and for God? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, let's just do something good for just to feel
Yeah.
good and just to know that God seen our good works.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember one funny thing. So then I started watching podcasts like Ryan Reed's Live. Then I found you, and I was like, oh, those people. Wow, that's how does it feel like to talk like in front of it? And I remember walking my dogs, and I had my phone, and you know, like on Facebook, you can be like direct, like the video like
Yeah.
live. And I was like, oh, how would that feel? And at that time, my dog just hit me, and I pressed the button. So it started, and I was like, oh, actually, if you do it for God, like it doesn't matter if you don't know how to talk or you look stupid. You know, you have all
Right.
of that, but actually, if you do it for Him, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can be, you look whatever.
He helps you too. You know what I mean? He
It's-
gives you the words. If you put yourself in those positions, it's like 10%, 5% you showing up, and the rest is God.
100%.
Right?
But you still have this moment, even when I came here in the car, I was like, oh, I don't know, but you do.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, he definitely made this happen today.
Yeah, off big time. This trip is such a crazy trip.
And where's your next stops?
I
do you
was
got going
supposed to go to. We were supposed to go to Vegas, but then my friend canceled last minute. So honestly, I don't know. And we will wake up tomorrow and we'll see.
You'll see.
Yeah.
What have you done so far?
We did San Diego and then San Clemente, Laguna Hill,
Cool.
and Long Beach and Pomona.
Nice.
We'll see.
see.
Now for us, this trip is really special. Like it wasn't supposed to happen. Like I had no money, nothing, and I found like in a really old like tribal backpack I had at home some old dollar from like 20 years ago, and I'm like, okay, and that was a sign. And then I was like, okay, let's go, let's do it.
That's crazy. Dude.
we
Just
were not supposed to be here.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, when you told me you were coming, and then you told me you were in Pomona, I was like, yo, we got to get you in here.
yeah, crazy.
Man, I thank you for coming out, bro.
I thank you.
What an amazing story of how God works, man.
Yeah.
To connect us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I always trip out on that.
Unbelievable.
I always trip out on that.
Yeah.
I'm not an artist. I love art. You know what I mean? And for me, it's like to meet so many great artists, and God put me in position to just meet them, talk to them. You know, they call me. They ask for prayer. They ask for different things. You know, I love when they tattoo and they're like, "Hey, you know, I'm tattooing this crucifixion scene, and what did it mean on the top of the you know, of the cross? What did those letters mean? You know?" And I share with them, or, "Hey, what is this the right way? Is Psalms with an S, or is it just Psalm?"
No, exactly.
Things like that.
No.
It's so cool, man.
He's using you. Like I was telling you, like I give your links to a lot of customer.
It's awesome. It's crazy that it travels like that, bro.
It does.
You know,
it does.
It travels, and how you were touched by just people from across the world that just God used them.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, and but yeah, and honestly, now this trip I really want to link with a lot of people for this project, and I can see it definitely open one door at a time, and
that'd be great, man.
Very exciting.
That'd be great. We'll be praying for that.
Yeah. Maybe you can sing on one of the songs.
Oh man, that's going way back there, bro. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have to send. I'll send you the link to my band from.
I didn't hear no.
I'll send you the link to one of my bands. You'll probably like it. All right.
I'll send you some song and.
All right, then we'll see where it goes.
Exactly.
How about that?
Exactly.
All right, man. We'll do it. Hey, man. You know, we do one last thing on the Street Gospel Podcast. We do the Furious 5. We ask you 5 furious questions, and we want your best answer.
All right.
Is that cool?
Yep.
All right. Oh, wait. How did you get the name Invaders? Let me ask that one before we get into the Furious 5.
In a bar, I guess. No, it's weird because like I never play any games on computer, but back in the day there was this game called Invaders.
Yeah.
And Invaders.
Okay.
And I was tired of people asking for praying hands and cross. Anyway, that's the name.
All right.
Where it come from.
It stuck with you.
Yeah.
Now you got to roll with it. I know for the longest time I just knew you as Invaders. It was funny.
Yeah.
You know, when our friend, you know, Tito introduced me through your via online, I was just like, okay, Invaders. And I was like, and I think when I saw you that one day, I was like, oh, that's Invaders. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
What is his real name?
And for me, when it was a game and I just had this face, it was better for me to have another name. Identity.
Got you. Yeah.
So.
Man, good stuff, man. All right. Let's get into the Furious 5 here. Christian Nan, Invaders, all the way from Geneva. Farthest one, man.
Yeah.
Question number 1 on the Street Gospel Furious 5. When you come to the States, what is the first meal you want to have? Where do you want to go to eat?
Sushi or Mexican.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
Is it good here?
Amazing.
Yeah.
I had the best tacos in San Diego.
Oh, yeah.
Oof,
Wait, do you know where you went?
It's too bad I don't have the name with me.
Yeah.
But that was the best. One of my friends who work at Tribal now, he gave me the name Fishada or something.
Okay.
In a neighborhood. Like, The best, really. That was amazing.
And that's where you're just like, you're just dying when you're on the plane coming here. You're like, I gotta have some tacos.
100%.
There's no tacos in Geneva?
No, and if anyone feel like he need to open a taco place in Switzerland, give him all my information. I will help him.
That'll be sick,
I will.
man.
I'm serious.
You're funding it. That's it. There's gonna be a little taco shop right outside your shop.
I'm ready for that. We do that together, 100%.
The only problem with that, bro, is that if you start eating tacos like that, man, you're gonna gain a little weight, bro.
I'll do sport every day. I'll do whatever it takes. So
That's what I say.
Yeah.
I love tacos, man.
Yeah.
Question number 2 on the Street Gospel Furious 5. Your most favorite band of all time?
Right now, POD.
POD.
For many reasons.
Yeah.
For many reasons.
Yeah, man, when I look at POD, I'm like, they've been around forever.
You want to hear a crazy story?
Yeah.
Short one. Way back in the day, so I met Bobby from Tribal. Amazing guys.
Yes.
He really inspired me. And at the same time, Wolf, the drummer, was there. So back in the day, he gave me his phone number. years later, and I never update my phone. I never do those things. Years later, I'm coming back to the US. My phone broke. I take another one in an old one in the drawer. I land in San Diego, and I see that POD is playing. And I look, I'm like, oh, what about my contact? What's the number? I just text him.
Wow.
Weeks later, he's like, you're on the guest list. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. But I love them. I love their face. I love the lyrics. A lot of them, I'm drumming also. So usually I love to draw in the morning with those lyrics. And it's just such a good reminder.
Right.
Love this band.
They're
amazing.
They're great guys.
Yeah.
Great guys. I met their family first.
Okay.
Loli and Tony. And then even through them, the street gospel theme song that I always play is through that, that whole connection, Malachi.
So good.
And then met Sonny one time.
Yeah.
We were trying to work out a date to have him on the show.
Yeah.
And then I have Will on the show. And he knows my friends. It's just crazy, but they've always been great. Me and Cam went to their show, and they played in Riverside, and then I've been to a few of their shows.
They're amazing. I really hope to have them also on this documentary.
Yeah.
And they will be playing in June in Europe, so hopefully.
Sick.
Let's see.
Yeah. Amazing. Question number 3 on the Street Gospel Furious 5. Who is your biggest inspiration when it comes to tattooing and art?
Wow. Okay, I have few favorites. So back in the day, Pochette, the designer, he was my favorite. Robert Williams, for sure. Tattooing, Philippe Leu, he did my bodysuit. He definitely changed my life. Jack Rudy. So many. And nowadays, like not only the art, but the people. Like Latisha, definitely amazing. Too many to name. But back in the day, my favorite were, Pochette,
Nice.
Robert Williams.
Great. Amazing, dude. Question number 4 on the Street Gospel Furious 5. Your biggest tattoo regret?
On me?
Yes.
I have few cover-ups. I have few cover-ups.
So any regret you had, they're gone. Just like your sins. They're out of here.
Yeah, some still need some work.
Okay.
Still.
Were the ones that you did?
No.
Oh, you didn't cover those ones.
No. But some other one. It work in progress.
Nice. Everybody has them, right?
Yeah, probably.
I think everybody has a tattoo that they wish, I wish it could have been done better. I wish I could redo it. And tattoos have changed so much. And even in the last 10 years, you're just like, I see stuff now. I'm just like, how?
Exactly. But the funny thing, I remember someone took a photo of me without a shirt. And I remember looking at the photo. I'm like, oh, you have some like old tattoos. You know, when it's on you, you don't realize it.
Right.
It's getting older. And on the picture, I was like, oh, actually, you look like those guys, actually. Like.
All right, man. Question number 5 on the Street Gospel Furious 5. If you can be somebody else for one day, who would you be?
Anything is possible?
Anything. Dead or alive.
He got all the answers, so.
Ooh. Hey, that's truthful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, hey, if I could be Jesus for one day,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're trying to be like.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Amazing. We're all working towards that, right?
Exactly.
So good.
Yeah.
Christian, man, I appreciate you coming out, bro.
Thank you so much. And honestly, if you know any artist that would love to collaborate on songs,
Yeah.
please
Okay.
give them my info, and hopefully this movement will be.
It'll be good.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find you at?
Instagram is the best. So my personal is Invaders, and the one from the movement, it's DWDI-movement.
Okay. Awesome, brother.
And yeah.
I appreciate you coming out, man. It was great
Thank
having
you
you.
so much. Thank you so much.
That'll conclude this episode of the Street Gospel Podcast with Christian Nguyen. Check him out, man. Check out his art. Check out what he got going on. We appreciate him coming out, and we appreciate you for listening, for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. We love you guys. We out.